Hello and welcome to Boardgame TV. Hope you're doing well. You know, it's coming up on my 2-year anniversary. It's coming February, about the middle of the month sometime. And I've never done a top 10 of my favorite games to playlist. And I decided to go ahead and think about it real hard and decided to go ahead and do it. So, I wanted to do a top 10 of my favorite games playlist. And that's what we're going to be doing today. But I do have an honorable mention I want to get out of the way first. Now, it's not in my top 10, but Horrified here is one of my favorite games. Now, it had just come out over this past summer. It's a relatively more commercialized game. It's rather inexpensive, not too complex. But I had a lot of fun with it, and I love the theme, and I love the Universal monster, so I may be a little biased on that. However, I am hoping that, since it is made by the people who made the Villainous series, that an expansion and more to, well, I guess maybe an expansion, and they add a little bit more things, come out for it, and improve upon the game. I think this is a fun game. It's worth getting. You can play with your family. Simple concepts. Anybody can do it. But if you love the Universal Classic Monsters, it has a really good theme to it. And every villain plays differently. So that's my honorable mention. Now let's get to my top 10. Alright, well, my number 10 is Lobotomy. Yes, Lobotomy from Titan Forge Games. Now this game is a couple years old. It doesn't look like anything new is going to come out for it or any type of expansion. It was a Kickstarter that got backed basically from Europe and came out, went to backers, had a lot of problems with the rules, a lot of question marks about gameplay. They even had to redo the rules a little bit. There's plenty of online charts and stuff that you need, that people put on Board Game Geek for this, and you think, well, how come this game has so many problems? Why would it be in your top 10? And basically, I think because of the theme. I have a joy every time I play this game. Now, granted, it does have quite a bit of setup, and that is another detractor from this game. But the concept of the game is so unique to me and so original that it permeates with me. You're in a mental asylum. You're, either crazy or the things that you're seeing are really happening. It's up to you to decide whether your characters are crazy or, actually part of some evil thing that's going on at this asylum. The mechanics of being able to use your mental disorders to give you strength and power is a pretty cool concept to me as well. And the fact that you can get items like pills, these memories which you can get more powers with, I think is a good system. This game is a diamond in the rough. There is no doubt about that. But the fact that there are so many different types of monsters, so many different types of scenarios, the theme is it's really good. It's an oppressive environment in the asylum. Your heroes have some cool abilities. There are really some cool abilities with these heroes, but you have to push the limits of your mind and sanity to really use them, but it's not without its risk. And, if you want to, you could play it like these people are crazy and they're going around killing innocent people, or you can play it like, hey, something evil is really going on here. And some of the villains are just, I know they're inspired, and some of the heroes are inspired by pop culture characters and movie and novel characters, but some of them, like the Antichrist, Frankenstein, Baba Yaga. I mean, who would ever thought to put that in a game? Nobody from America. So really, I think the originality of this game, which in my mind, to me, there hasn't been a game quite this close in a long time, and that's why it stays in my top 10. I like to pull this game out every now and then. I like to play it, and yeah, it does require a little bit of setup, but it is fun. And it is hard, but it's fun. And I think the theme is what really gets me for this game. So my number 10 is Lobotomy. My number 9 is Pathfinder. Pathfinder satisfies two itches for me. My fantasy playing, and this is my favorite fantasy game, and a deck building game, which is not my favorite deck building game. But however, it is one of my favorites. Look, I never heard or really knew anything about Pathfinder before I got into it. And at the height of the time when deck builders were starting to come out, you know, Paizo decided, hey, let's make a deck building game based on our Pathfinder world. And I think they did a really, really good job with it. I really like the fact, I think this is one of my favorite things, actually, is the setup. Look, you open the box, they got spaces and setups for every card type you want. Not many games do that, man. I mean, let's be honest with it. I mean, you know, you have so much playability in this box right here. You have 6 different scenarios, which has several different adventures inside each scenario. You have so many cards, yet it's not that hard to carry around. You even have a space for your heroes over here, which you can buy extra ones. And it all, you just carry it around in one simple box. And you can get to playing. Really, I don't think any other deck building game that I've played recently or that I really like came up with something good like that. It just makes everything simple and convenient. Now, I also like the fact that they had 4 base sets. I know they've reworked it and come out with another one, but they've had 4 base sets, and you can look at it as an episode of your favorite TV show or a season of your favorite TV show. You have one season come out, you may like it, you may not. Okay, if you don't, you go on to the next one, and you may like that one better. And I very much think that the Pathfinder adventure games is a lot like that. I liked Rise of Rune Lords. It had a lot of good things about it, especially in the beginning scenarios with the cannibals, the cult, the crazed ogres. I didn't like Skull of Shackles as much, but then again, Wrath of the Righteous comes out, and I like that one better. So it all depends on your personal taste. Now, it is a heavy investment. I mean, you're paying like $50 for the base game, and then the scenarios come out, and they cost about $10 or $15 per scenario. And if you want extra heroes, well, that's going to cost you a little extra too. But it's nothing outrageous. And the concept is simple. Each location has some cards. They tell you what cards to put in there. You set up your decks and you go do the adventure. Pretty simple. It's to people who like the more advanced deck building games that have come out since then, it may seem a little tame. But honestly, I do like it. I think even though I'm not versed in Pathfinder lore and familiar with the setting and all that, I found myself finding out a little by little each time I played more about the setting and became more interested in it. And I think the mechanics for the game are fairly good, simple. Everything's easy to keep track of because they got such a good storage and setup system. And the game doesn't take long to set up at all. And you get a lot of play for what you get in the box. And especially if you end up getting more things and everything for it, you have a ton of playthrough for this one box. I mean, a ton. So Pathfinder, while not seeming to be a lot of people's favorite or on the radar, to me it just comes easy to me because I like the world, I like the simplicity, I like the setup and organization, and I like the convenience of it. So Pathfinder, the adventure card game, my number 9. My number 8 is Fortune and Glory from Flying Frog Games. The first of, well, I guess, spoiler, a couple of Flying Frog games in this list. And Fortune and Glory is one of my favorites. Now, I know it's an older game. It's Ameritrash as hell. It's fiddly. It's pure Flying Frog in their early days. Pure American trash board games in their early days. But damn, this game is only one of the few games that still make me feel like I'm Indiana Jones or I'm in an Indiana Jones movie. I mean, I've played a lot of adventure games, and this one still, for the atmosphere, which Flying Frog always nails their atmosphere really good in all their games. You can say what you will about them as a company. Atmosphere is their strong point. Theme is their strong point. They always succeed on that. And this game right here succeeds on what it does. To make you feel like an Indiana Jones type adventurer in the 40s. Going on all these crazy adventures and getting all this treasure. And Fortune and Glory succeeds at that. Yeah, there have probably been a lot of games that have come out since then, but this one still makes me feel more like any other game that I've played, like an Indiana Jones. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you can fault this game for a lot of problems, but it still does that very well. And I still love to pull this game out and play it. Especially, you know, you add the expansions to it, you get even more replayability. I am a little disappointed, you know, that Flying Frog has kind of seemingly given up on their older games. I know last year, as a matter of fact, they were saying they were going to come out with some more expansions. They even named them for the Fortune and Glory. And I was ready to get them and add them to my playthroughs. But they've been MIA. They haven't come out. I think they're so busy with Shadows of Brimstone that this has been put on the back burner. And I hope that's just it. They put it on the back burner. I hope this haven't been canceled, because I think Fortune and Glory is a fantastic game. You know, it's a family game. You can still play with your family. It's nothing too complicated. Some of the rules are fiddly. There is a lot of dice chucking, but it still is a fun game for adventuring, tending your Indiana Jones, getting in car chases, traveling around the world, getting your treasure, fighting villains and stereotypical henchmen and, you know, stuff like that. So Fortune and Glory, hey, it's still good. Don't sleep on this one. Still one of my favorite games. Number 8, Fortune and Glory. My number 7 is my second deck building game in this list, and that is Marvel Legendary. Look, I love the Marvel Universe. Always have since I was a kid. I like deck building games for the most part. And why not combine the two together? Well, you know, Upper Deck, I think, did a really good job with this series. Though it's starting to show its age now. I mean, after a ton of expansions, you really can't fault it for showing its age. I mean, let's go through. You have the base set. You have the villains thing, which I think they gave up on a little too quickly. But that's neither here nor there. The World War Hulk, 2 Secret Wars, Dark City, X-Men. I know I'm missing another big box in there somewhere. Civil War. And you have the small boxes, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Venom, Deadpool, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, the list can go on and on. Even Fear itself. So there are a ton, and it's getting to the point where now it's starting to get, you know, hard to keep up with all the sets and keep them in one. You can't fit them in one box. I can't fit, I mean, I have 3 boxes, and I'm starting to run out of space now, and I still don't even have all the sets for this game. So it's starting to become bulky. But that being said, I think the game has consistently improved. They've added keywords which have changed mechanics to the game. They've added horror cards. They've added harder masterminds. They've added you know, to where a new mastermind can come in while you're playing. They've added all sorts of things to this game to make it better from what it was when it first came out. And I think it did stumble a little bit when it first came out. But my love of Marvel superheroes and the fact that there was at the time really no other good Marvel superheroes game, and would I have preferred a tabletop game? Sure, but we got a deck building game. But that's not to say it wasn't any good. It still makes you feel like you are playing and you are inside a Marvel comic book or the Marvel Universe, whichever you choose. I think the mechanics are good. The artwork is good. The small box, big box thing I think is a good setup. The components are good. I think they've included just about every major B level, C level heroes and villains they can. I think they're starting to run out of stuff, and they have duplicated a lot. And I think this game is not without its problems. However, when I want that superhero, that Marvel superhero experience, I play Marvel Legendary. And that's because it's the closest thing for me to being inside a comic book. That's why I continue to still try and get the products when they come out, or sometime relatively soon after they come out, and you still have fun. And it's still such a simple concept. Play a villain card, recruit your heroes, try to defeat the mastermind before he completes his scheme. Simple concept. Family can play it. It's not too complicated. And all you really need to do is keep track of the keywords. I think that's the hardest part of this game, is keeping track of the multitude of keywords that are starting to come up now. Yes, this game is starting to show its age, but I think it's still a very good game. And if you don't want an expansion, you don't have to buy it. The champions, you don't care for them, you're not missing out if you don't purchase it. World War Hulk, you didn't like that storyline, you're not missing out if you don't get that box set. So, it's up to you what you want to do and how far you want to go with it. I'm a completionist, so I tend to try to get everything, and I really like my Marvel Legendary. I think they've had a few stumbles, but they've also, taken a couple steps forward. Yes, this game is starting to show its age, and I've said that and repeatedly, but I still think this is a very solid game, and it's still going, so they got to be doing something right. So Marvel Legendary, my number 7 on this list. My number 6 game from Victory Point Games is Dawn of the Zeds, 3rd edition. Now look, I'm a latecomer coming into Dawn of the Zeds. I never owned the 1st edition, never played it. Never owned the 2nd edition, never played it. Saw some playthroughs of the 2nd edition, was intrigued. When the Kickstarter for this came around for the 3rd edition, I didn't get on it the first time. And the second time I got in on it when they added some expansions to it. Look, this is a fantastic game. This is one of them games where you can adjust the difficulty. This is one of them games where if you want to play for an hour, you can play it for an hour. It's one of them games where you can set the deck up for if you want to play a marathon, like a 3-4 hour game with this thing, you can do it. This game oozes theme, and this is, I guess, my only strategic type game I like in my list. I love this concept. I know there are plenty of war games like this, but I like the zombie theme better, and I think this game is very well done. It has good components, and I'm talking about the 3rd edition now. I had never touched the 1st or the 2nd. It has good components. It is a little complex, okay? You start adding in everything, not the beginner's game, but you start going all the way to the director's cut version, and you have a lot of moving parts of this game. You have a lot of stuff you have to keep up with. It's not one of them, hey, pick up and play type of games. It takes a little bit of setup, but man, it is worth it. If you can sit there and spend 4 to 5 hours just killing a day playing this game, and it makes you think what you have to do to win this game. Where you're going to place your people. Which Zeds are you going to try to defeat? Oh my gosh, trying to prepare for what can suddenly happen next. but you never know what's going to happen. Can you get some bad cards? Can you turn things around? Very, very, very fun game. I introduced this game to a friend of mine not too long ago. Had never played it, and he enjoyed the hell out of it. I hope they come out with more stuff. They said they were going to come out with more little expansion packs for it. I'll buy that in a second. This game to me is just, I love the concept of it. They got to be doing something right, because if you look at what the first edition was, it was like paper map, paper cards, and this game has grown, like a lot of other Victory Point games, to be great components and a very well regarded game. And if you're into strategy, if you're into siege defense, then this is the game for you. If you really want to have to think about what you're going to do, how you can do it, if you can turn things around, or how you can keep pressing on the advantage that you have momentarily, this is the game for you. Dawn of the Zeds, and it oozes that theme. And you can play it solo, co-op, and competitive. So there are a lot of ways to play it. A lot of fun any way you do it. Just a great game. Dawn of the Zeds. The only really strategic siege game I have, and that I own and that I've played, and I just fell in love with it. And I couldn't be more happier. I'm a little late to the party, but man, this game has blown me away. So Dawn of the Zeds, my number 6 favorite game on my list. My number 5, another deck builder, and the final deck builder in my list, and that is Sentinels of the Multiverse. I don't know if you could say it like this, but I guess I crapped on this game when I first heard about it. I thought the art was goofy. These are just a bunch of made-up superheroes that I have no interest in. Why would I ever want to play this game? But after watching a couple playthroughs, and at the time there wasn't a lot of deck building games I was interested in. I don't think Marvel Legendary had come out yet. I got into the game just on a whim. And every time I played it, I became more and more interested in the lore behind the heroes, in the world that they had created. And I started to get one expansion, then I got the next expansion, and got into it even more and more and more. And so, till I finally just came out and said, look, honestly, I like this game better than Marvel Legendary. I never thought I'd hear myself say that, seeing as how I love the Marvel Universe. But I love the universe of Sentinels of the Multiverse. I find the heroes very interesting once you get into them, and the way they piecemeal you the lore. You get lore about them in the book, in the instruction manual. You get lore about them on the cards you play. And then every expansion kind of continues the timeline of that lore. The little promo cards continue timelines with it. It's a fantastic game. And it's so simple. So simple. Villain does what it does. You do what you do. You play a card, draw a card, do start of the turn, end of the turn, then the environment goes. And I think that's another thing that really blew me away about it, was they did an environment. You just didn't have the heroes versus the villains. You had an environment which kind of was independent of the heroes and villains, and could hurt both, and can play a game, could play into how the game went for either side. And I like how the villain flipped once you got to a certain point in the thing. You don't have to build your deck. You already come with your deck. You know what's in your deck. It's just a matter of, can I get to what I want to draw or what I want to play, and that kind of stuff. And it does require you to think and use strategy. In my mind, a lot more than something like Marvel Legendary. And you know, so for me, I was a little sad when this game ended. I think they did stumble a little bit with the Oblivion set, but that's very ambitious what they did. It's very ambitious what they tried to do. And basically all these heroes and villains in this set is basically a homage or copy, if you want, of a Marvel or DC or a mixture of them, another superhero. But they get it so right, and the atmosphere is so good, and it kind of draws you back to the 40s, if you would, I would say, early style of those type of comic books, where everything was over the top and good was good and bad was bad. There were no gray areas, and they fiddle a little bit maybe in Rook City with it, and it's just so good. And Sentinels of the Multiverse, I highly recommend this. Now that they're done with it, you can get everything, and this will last you forever. If you don't want to spend the money though to get all the card game, then they have a game on Steam where you can download to your computer, and you can pay basically $35, $36 and get every single thing in the whole Sentinels of the Multiverse and play on your computer, your laptop, your desktop, whatever, your tablet if you got Steam. And it's not quite the same for me as the physical cards being turned and playing on the tabletop. I do like that feeling better. However, they keep up with the big fiddliness of this series, which is a problem for a lot of people. The upkeep of the the health counters, the +1 damage, -1 damage, immune to energy damage, toxic damage is devil, that type of stuff. Can't do damages turn. It helps keep up with a lot of that, which is one of the, I guess, well, you have to take it, with the game. It's just part of the game, and it's not the best part, but it's not terrible, and it's just part of the game. So it helps keep up with all that on who would go first and this kind of thing. And but I still like the tabletop edition better. I own both. I just like flipping the cards, playing on a tabletop. There's just something different about it that the computer loses. I do recommend the Sidekick though. That'll help you keep up with people's health real easy. It's cheap, it's inexpensive. And Sentinels of the Multiverse, man, I still to this day can't believe how much I love this game for a bunch of made up superheroes. Who knew? Sentinels of the Multiverse, my number 5 on my list. My number 4 is my second Flying Frog game on my list, and that's A Touch of Evil. Look, I know it's an oldie. I know, again, like a lot of early Flying Frog games, it's very fiddly, a lot of dice chunking, very Ameritrash. Some of the components may not be the greatest. However, the game oozes theme. It just oozes theme. And take into account the amount of expansions they've came out with it, all the different villains, all the different heroes, and you have a ton of replayability. Touch of Evil I got into because I wanted something that was very much like Arkham Horror, and I had played the hell out of Arkham Horror, and I wanted another experience like it. Found out about Touch of Evil, except basically it takes place in the colonial times and its villains are a lot more varied. Took a risk and bought it. My first Flying Frog product buy, and it blew me away. Didn't like it as much as Arkham Horror, spoiler alert, but I thought the game was very good, and I spent many hours playing with it. I mean, I still love playing it to this day, and that's something seeing how old this game is. The game has free stuff on its website, so there's that, which is always a bonus. The theme is so strong with this game, again, like all Flying Frog games, that it just permeates, it just overwhelms all the faults this game has with it. This game does have some faults, don't get me wrong, but the the cards are good quality. The miniatures are decent quality. A lot of the other components are decent quality. Some of the components aren't as good quality, but that's early Flying Frog. And with basically 2 big box expansions, 2 small box expansions, a couple of web things, what can you say? There's a lot to this game. I like the idea of having town elders, which could die or live and help you or turn evil against you. I like the variety of villains. You go from the Headless Horseman to a Scarecrow to a vampire to a Cthulhu type thing to like a Dreamweaver to Krampus. I mean, there's just so much different variety. And the fact that it takes place in the 1700s is something you don't see a lot of these days as well. And I think Flying Frog hit it out of the park with this game. I'm a little sad that they haven't done anything with it. I know it seems like all their time and effort is consumed with Shadows of Brimstone, which, I guess I shouldn't complain about, but I would like to see them not neglect their older treasures that are still great. Yeah, this game is dated. It's dated as hell, but it's still a fun time. You can play with your family. It's easy. Yeah, a lot of dice chucking. Sometimes, depending on the villain, there's a lot of things to keep up with. And, you can make mistakes, but still, fun game. Flying Frog, this is why they've kind of, been successful as a company. I mean, think about it. Excuse me. When they came out with this game, there weren't many board game companies out there. There's Fantasy Flight was the big one. Few others here and there getting bought out and bankrupt and sold by other companies. But Flying Frog, little Mr. Independent, comes out of Washington and starts producing games. And their games have, to this day, still stood the test of time. So that is my number 4, A Touch of Evil. My number 3 from Fantasy Flight Games, Eldritch Horror. Look, say what you want to say about Eldritch Horror. It's hard. Yes. It's unfair. Yes. It's living in the shadow of its big brother or big sister, Arkham Horror. Yes. They didn't do enough with it. They gave up on it too quick. Yes. But damned if I still don't love playing this game. This game, now look, if you know my history, you know how I feel about Arkham Horror. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. I couldn't leave Arkham Horror off this list. But when Arkham Horror ended, they decided to try to correct the mistakes that Arkham Horror had made. And they felt they couldn't go any further with Arkham Horror. And they wanted to streamline it. And thus Eldritch Horror was born. Plus, it's a whole new way to make money. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? A whole new cash cow. And I remember the hype surrounding this game when it first came out. And I bought into it and I got it. And when it first came out, I was highly disappointed by it. It stumbled out the gate. They cheaped out on it. That's the best way to say it. They cheaped out on it. There was nowhere near amount of cards, especially if you were somebody like me who's a completionist who had everything Arkham had to offer. And you had cards, and more cards. You just had so many cards. They didn't have enough cards. Didn't have enough heroes. Didn't have enough ancient ones. The game didn't feel that terror that Arkham did. It felt more like Indiana Jones, Fortune and Glory, Arkham meets Fortune and Glory. But they did streamline the process. They did streamline it. For a time, this game was, believe it or not, very much streamlined. It was easier to play. I do like some of the mechanics a lot better. I like having to solve these mysteries. I think the globe-trotting thing around the world is not necessarily worse than being kept in Arkham, but it has just a different feel to it. And it just depends on which one you prefer. You know, some like chocolate, some like vanilla. However, as the game kept coming out and expansions kept coming out for it, they kept tweaking it. And I remember the first expansion, the Forsaken Lore expansion, added a buttload more cards than it should have, because they knew they screwed up and didn't put enough cards in there. I mean, they were telling you to reshuffle the freaking city decks every time you used a card. Put that card back in there and reshuffle it. And that's just, what? So you could get the same experience in theory over and over again. But I think they fixed a lot of the problems with their first couple expansions. And then they came out with their first big board expansions, out the Mountain of Madness, and that fixed some more. And it alleviated some things by introducing the focus mechanic, to which you could get some rerolls, because this game was brutal. It didn't seem fair. Some of the cards, and it still doesn't. They even came out with another mechanic, the resource mechanic, to help you out, and it still doesn't seem fair at times. And towards the end, they started putting in too many of the small cards. You were by the time you got done, you had so many different conditions. You had so many unique assets that the deck's just overflowing. And if you touched the deck wrong, and if you had it stacked, it'd fall over, and you'd have cards everywhere. It became a little bit too bloated at the end. Now, honestly, I think had they got rid and some of the conditions and talents and all that kind of stuff, and a whole bunch of the assets, and maybe toned it down on the spells a little bit and some of the items in the reserve, I think the game would have been a lot better. I also think that they could have done more. They could have come out with a couple more expansions. Had they done that, you know, toned the other parts down, I think they could have at least come out with 2, maybe 3 more expansions. But they cut it short, maybe because it wasn't selling like they thought, maybe because they thought people were unhappy with it, or maybe they just wanted to go ahead and come out with Arkham 3rd Edition and bring out the new cash cow. Who knows? I'm not an insider there. But I love this game. I really do. It makes me think a lot more than Arkham did. It's streamlined in a lot more places than Arkham was. And I like the mysteries. This game is brutal, though. It is a hell of a lot more unfair. It is a lot more random. You can have everything under control, as you saw in my recent campaign playthrough. And one card can just change the face of the game, and you can never recover from it. Whereas in Arkham, if something bad happened or you made a mistake, you still felt like you could recover. In this game, you don't feel like you can recover. One bad thing and it's just all over. I do like the inclusion at the end of the campaign system. I did like playing the campaign. I think Eldritch Horror, if you go in knowing that Eldritch Horror has a different feel than Arkham, it's not trying to be Arkham, it's trying to be something a little different, but with some of your favorite things from Arkham. And if you give it a chance, and if you get all the expansions, and you can forgive the brutality and the overabundance of certain card decks, then I think Eldritch Horror is a fantastic game, and I was sad to see it end. I really was. This game doesn't get the credit it deserves, I think. I think it's overshadowed a lot. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread or a masterpiece or even better than Arkham, but Eldritch Horror gets crapped on, I think, a little too much for the wrong reasons sometimes. And yes, it has a different feel. It does lose some of the terror aspect, but you have more of an adventure aspect. And I think that's what they were going for. And so Eldritch Horror is my number 3 favorite game. Alright, my number 2. You knew it was coming. You knew it had to be on this list somewhere, especially if you watch any of my videos and know my history. Arkham Horror. Look, what is there to say about this masterpiece, this classic masterpiece from Fantasy Flight Games? This was the game that got me into board gaming, okay? I had gone through a little bit of a rough period. Things at work and at home were stressing me out. I needed basically a hobby of some sorts. I've always loved the Cthulhu type stuff. I'd never heard of Arkham Horror, to be honest with you. It just, you know, and that's from me coming from a comic books, Dungeons and Dragons background of the 80s and stuff. I'd never heard of Arkham Horror and 90s. And found out about it, had a little extra money, bought the game. My OCD wouldn't let me just buy the base set. I had to buy everything. And for months, I played the hell out of this game. My wife would get so mad at me when I'd commandeer the dining room table and just for hours on end play this game and neglect other things, to where, you know, I had to eventually put a stop to it. But this game blew me away. It was fantastic. I had never experienced a board game like this before. You know, was in the mentality that board games were Monopoly, Clue, Life, Candyland, that type of stuff. The weird, wacky stuff of the 90s board games like Hero Quest and Atmosphere and stuff were long gone. And along came this game. You know, this game does have its faults. Let's not pretend it doesn't. A little too complicated for some people. A little too many phases, which I think they corrected with Eldritch. This game is fiddly at times. You're having to keep up with a lot of things. This game can seem very complicated to people who just come in. It's an acquired taste, but I guess by today's standards, the components aren't that great. You know, little cardboard cutouts of the monsters and stuff like that. But this is the game that's responsible for modern day board gaming. Let's not kid ourselves. If Arkham Horror had never been a success that it was, what would have happened to Fantasy Flight? And if Fantasy Flight hadn't been the success that they were at the time, what would have happened to board gaming in general? I mean, let's be real. The atmosphere's there. You don't even have to love Cthulhu, but it sure as hell helps. If you love Cthulhu, how do you not own this game? If you love H.P. Lovecraft, how do you not own this game? The expansions for it are great. Ton of replayability over and over again. Some of the ancient ones are just brutal, but some of the ancient ones aren't. You know, some of the heroes are a little bit OP, but some of the heroes aren't. So there's balance there. And like I said, my Eldritch Horror thing, it's not as unforgiving as Eldritch. You can, if you make a mistake or some bad card happens, you can recover in this game. It's not easy, but you can. The only thing that I kind of look back on now, and it's kind of not as good to me, is that The Way to Win by Sealing Six Gates. I think that's you know, that's a staple of that time for board games. Now board games, you know, have modernized and evolved, and sure, there's many, you know, much more better ways to win games. Like I think Eldritch Horror with the mysteries is better, but still a classic for its time, and a classic today. Is, I think, every true board gamer, if you love board games, this is a must-have. This has to be in your library. I haven't even bothered looking at 3rd edition. I've seen a few playthrough snippets here and there. I have no desire to go to 3rd edition. Maybe I'm wrong for that. Maybe I'll come around one day and do that. But honestly, I don't see why I would play 3rd edition when I can still pull this out and have a different experience every time than I've ever had before. There's just so much replayability. So, you know, yeah, I look at this game through rose-colored glasses, but, you know, I can't help it. It's what got me into board gaming, what's got me into this hobby, what got me into making this channel. I think it's what got a lot of other people to make board games. A lot of other companies owe their success to this game, and it has its own I don't know, like, you know how you got goth kids culture? I guess it has its own Cthulhu culture. So hell, it was even in an episode of South Park. So, so you know you're big time then. So Arkham Horror, my number 2 game on this list. And my number 1 game should come as no surprise. You had to know it was going to be my number 1 game. Shadows of Brimstone from Flying Frog Productions. Look, I remember when the Kickstarter for this game was announced. I was already a big fan of Flying Frog. I thought it a little odd that they go into Kickstarter. I thought they had bit off more than they can chew. They were very ambitious with this. But I thought, man, if they could pull it off, and if anybody could pull it off, it would be Flying Frog because they are heavy on theme. If they could pull it off, this is going to be a great game. Now, the Kickstarter had problems. The game was delayed. And some could say that this game has even killed the Flying Frog that we love and know, because they seem to have stopped making or expanding on their other games and coming out with new games, and have just focused solely on Shadows of Brimstone for the most part. And that could be a good or bad thing, either way you look at it. And this game, when it first came out, did have its problems. Let's not be honest. The models, if you don't like putting models together, well, damn hell, you're never going to love putting these models together for Shadows of Brimstone. I mean, this game takes an investment more than just money. And you have to realize that. It takes an investment of time. It does take an investment of money now. Don't get me wrong. This game is a cash killer, man. This game will go through your bank account like nothing. But it also takes time and love. Because I love, I was never a model builder. And I'm not any good at model building. And there are times when I put these models together and it frustrates the hell out of me. Painting, I've never been a model painter. And I think I stink at painting. But this game got me starting to want to paint figures from all my other games. And I started to enjoy it a little bit. I still stink at it, I think. But I started to enjoy it. And yes, this game still has a lot of the typical Flying Frog problems, you could say. Too much dice rolling. Too many fiddly mechanics. A lot to keep up with. And it does. I think they've steadily improved upon some of it. But this game oozes theme like nobody's business. The Wild West, and now they've expanded to samurai feudal Japan, and now they're even expanding to Viking and conquistadors. And there is so much replayability with this game that all the time, money, and effort you put into it, it pays you back. If you're a fan of board games, if you love this hobby, this game pays you back in spades. Because the ability to not only have all these different worlds which you can explore from the Wild West, and all these different type of monsters, and the more you get for this game, the bigger beast it becomes. And a lot of people would say that's a problem. I don't think it's a problem yet. Hell, give me more. The more the merrier. Now, depending on the theme, I may not be as enthusiastic about it. I mean, let's be honest, I wasn't as enthusiastic of the feudal Japan theme in Forbidden Fortress than I was of the Old West. But I still got a hell of a lot out of it and still like playing it and still have a hell of a lot of fun playing it. The fact that you can level up your characters is fantastic. It kind of mixes the old Dungeons and Dragons role-playing with board games. I know there are other games that have done that, but I think Shadows of Brimstone, in my opinion, has done it pretty damn good. The different worlds you can go to is one of the big selling points to me. It's one of the best things about it. The components are good. The map tiles, the cards, the models, they were a little wonky in the beginning, but they've steadily have gotten a lot better with the models. Okay? All the different mechanics, you still have to keep up with a lot of stuff. But the great thing about this is you can pick and choose what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. You know, you don't have to play by their set of rules. You can have a campaign anywhere you want. You can go anywhere you want. You can use anyone you want. You know, that's what's so great. It's the sandbox of board games. And no other company and no other game has been able to really do, in my opinion, as big a success as Shadows of Brimstone. I'm a video gamer, and I love sandbox video games like Grand Theft Auto, especially Vice City, among other games. But in the board game world, there was nothing like that. And this, to me, is like that. It's the closest like it. You know, Red Dead Redemption. I think this game gets a lot of its inspiration from Red Dead Redemption. And I think this is almost like a board game version of Red Dead Redemption, and just add monsters to it. My favorite game, one I'm continuing to support, even though my wallet likes to tell me no. My only fault, really, my biggest complaint, to be honest with you, is not about the rules and some of the fiddliness. It's about the delays and the expense of keeping up with this game. You know, we were already supposed to have the feudal Japan village, among a few other things. And it's been delayed. We haven't got that yet. We just had another Kickstarter for Shadows of Brimstone with the Vikings and the Conquistadors. And so, you know, my wallet hadn't got a break because every couple months they release something new for this game. And sometimes it's stuff they don't even tell you about, or that you knew where it was upcoming. It's something totally new monster out of the blue that they just came out with out of the blue and say, oh yeah, we got these now. I don't like that. Although I want to get the monsters and stuff to be a completionist, I don't like being sprung upon like that. So a lot of my complaints really with this game is basically with Flying Frog and how they handle some things. But this is a beast entirely of its own. I mean, this is a big, humongous beast, and it's taken over their company. Now, I'm hoping that, as much as I love this game, that after the next Kickstarter comes out, which let's be honest, they'll probably have some delays with that they take a break from this game for maybe a year or two and go back to work on some of their other games and stuff like that, and give us a chance to get caught up, because it's hard to keep caught up with this game if you're a completionist, to get all the things. It's very hard. It's very expensive. I think some of their things are a little bit overpriced, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion. And but I think in the end it's worth it. I still have all my models painted and put on in shelves and on display. And I still love playing this game. I think I will love playing this game for forever. And whenever an idea comes along and hits me, I'm like, yeah, I can do that with Shadows of Brimstone. Let me put a saloon girl, a samurai, some guy from some swamp world together and let them go on some kind of crazy adventure through all these different worlds to get these artifacts. Yeah, I can come up with something like that for Shadows of Brimstone. All of this game, your limit for this game is your imagination. And if you know, you have a limited imagination, well, this this game may not be the greatest thing for you. You just play the scenarios they come with. But God, if you got an imagination, if you got some creativity, you can, and you got a little bit of money, you can come up with so much stuff to where if you only had one board game you can have with everything that comes with it, this would be the game to get. Because you'll never run out of ideas, you'll never run out of replayability, and you'll always have fun. You can just play this game ad nauseum, ad nauseum, ad nauseum, ad nauseum. All these different monsters, all these different heroes, all these different worlds. The sandbox is just open wide, and your imagination is the sky. So, Shadows of Brimstone is my #1 game, and it looks like it's going to be #1 for a long time. I hope you enjoyed my list. Hey, you know, just let me know what your favorites are, if you agree or disagree with me. What's your top 10? You think I messed up on some of my order? You think I'm crazy about some of my order? You think I neglected to put some games that should have been in here? Did I overrate some games? Just let me know what you think. I'll be interested to see how you feel about that, and what your favorite top 10 games are, and you know, how I probably differentiate from a lot of you guys. But I had fun in doing this. I enjoy making this list. I had to think about it for a little while, but I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it too. So I hope to see you next time. Until then, have fun.